Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to another installment in the Dining Room Central Railroad build. If you're watching last time, you will have seen me complete all the tasks that I was originally contracted to do. But by the time I got that far, the client had already asked me if I would build some scenery in one particular area. Now, this area concerned is a long, narrow strip around the front and side of the helix, which is the view one would see from his living room. And we both felt that it would be good for family relations if they would be looking at an area of finished scenery rather than a construction site. So with this great new opportunity opening up, let's head out to the workshop and have some fun. Well, I'm back out in the workshop after the Christmas break, and I'm not sure if I hinted at it before or not, but the client has decided he would like me to build the scenery in this area. Here is the trestle that is going in the corner. It is built using the Walther's kits, and it is slightly complicated by the fact that I've had to build it on a sharp curve and a grade. So with the super elevation for the curve, each span has all four corners at different elevations. I've already marked out the path of the track around the outside of the helix, put the roadbed in and worked out exactly where the turnout's going. Next thing to do is to cut out this piece of plywood, and then once I've done that, I have to figure out exactly how much I have to jack up these legs to get the trestle at the right height. So let me do that and I will be right back. Well, here is the trestle positioned temporarily on the bottom deck. As you can see, it is still about 2 to 3 inches too low, and I've cut out nowhere near enough of the sub roadbed. That was done deliberately because I don't want to cut out too much. I just wanted to make a hole big enough to get the trestle in without damaging it. So now I can slide it around to where I want it and work out exactly how much plywood I need to cut away. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Well, I have now cut the sub roadbed back further, and I've built my stands, and I am reasonably happy with the location of that trestle. So I have screwed the trestle bases to the stands, and I've drawn around them as well, so that if I do have to take it out again for any reason, I can put it back in the right location. I'm having to make a slight adjustment to the alignment because the trestle ended up at a slightly larger radius than it was planned for. Originally it was supposed to be a 25-inch radius, and it ended up more like 28. So I have to fudge it just a little bit to make it work and still get the easements in. Well, I've now test fitted 3 yards of track either side of the trestle and all the way to the first turnout for this town that I'm not building, and I'm now happy with the alignment, so it is time to take everything apart and glue it in place. I've also got to remark the base of the trestle because I ended up moving it slightly. So no big deal. Let me do that and I'll be right back. Don't go away. Well, the track is now glued in place from that turnout all the way around to the trestle, and then one more piece the other side of it. I elected not to go all the way to the benchwork joint where the swing gate comes in, because I didn't want critical joints at both ends where it's difficult to get them right. It's much easier just to do one critical joint and then let the other one end wherever it needs to in the middle of that straight. And then when I'm ready to do the swing gate and the bridge across it, I will fit that piece of track accurately. So rather than risk disturbing that track before it's had time to set up properly, I think I'm just going to go in and call that a day. So don't go away, I will check in with you again tomorrow. Well, so far this morning I have installed the bus wires and all the feeders all the way along. Of course, there really isn't anything to see from the top, but if we look down behind the trestle, you can see that where the bus wires have to get past it, I've taken them all the way down to the staging yard level and used wire ties to attach them to the plywood down there. That way they're out of the way and behind the scenery. Next thing I've got to do is get some abutments in. And I have a Walther's kit for a pair of concrete abutments. I'm going to put that together quickly and try that, see if it works. I think it will, because it will match the concrete footings. So let me go inside, do that quickly, and I'll be right back. Don't go away. Well, here are the two abutments assembled. It only took me a few minutes to do that, but I also took lunch while I was inside. What I've got to do next is get some risers, one under each side, basically forming a pair of shelves to mount them on. And of course with the grade they're different heights, so let me work on those. I'll be right back. Well, here are the two abutment stands. It's just 3 pieces of plywood forming a shelf to put the abutment on. This one's a little bit complicated in that I can't install the shelf until the abutment is in place, because otherwise there's no way of getting it in. So before I continue, I'm going to glue the vertical supports at the bottom so that they're in the right place. And then I'm going to take the abutments inside and paint them. So don't go away, I'll check in with you again later. Well, while I am waiting for the trestle abutments to dry, I have spray painted these screwed rods. They'll be a lot less visible when the scenery's in, being flat black rather than a shiny metallic colour. Now what I'm going to do is put the bridges back into place and get the sub roadbed cut out and start working on those. Before I can position this bridge, I need to make sure that there is room for these corner curves. The issue here is that we have substituted a much bigger bridge than was intended. It's just such a good looking kit. We both decided it would look really nice here. And the cost of doing this is that we have to cheat the easement slightly onto the bridge span. Not enough to cause a problem, but it does mean that the alignment here is quite critical. Anyway, I've now plotted the approximate centre lines of the tracks at the correct radii, just to ensure that it is actually going to fit. So with that done, I can now figure out exactly where this bridge goes. And then once I've done that, the lower bridge is a lot easier. So let me do that, and I'll be right back. Well, this is as far as I'm going to go on the swing gate for now. I have a whole load of piers and abutments on order. They haven't arrived yet, but when they do, I'll be able to have a look and see which is going to be the most appropriate. It's probably going to be whatever's the tallest, because the piers for the truss bridge need to be a lot taller than I thought they did. So I have to see what works there when everything arrives. And then in the trestle scene, I have got the abutments painted, adjusted and permanently installed. So while that glue sets up and goes hard, I don't want to jolt anything and risk vibrating it out of position. So I'm just going to go in now. It's really early, it's only been a half day, but it is Saturday and it is New Year's Eve. So I'm just going to call it a short day, and I will see you next year. Don't go away. But today my plan is to start roughing in the scenic contours for this area, but before I do that I wanted to get the track tested just to make certain that I hadn't wired something up backwards. Anyway, when I put the locomotive on the track, the sound system started right up, and that is always a good sign. Well, I've now cut down the fascia again, a couple more times actually, gradually getting it closer and closer to where I think it needs to be. I did toy with the idea of cutting a little bit of this plywood deck out and going slightly below staging level, just in a small area at the front. But I don't think I'm going to now, because already I think this fascia in front of it is a good height for the best effect. And if I cut it any lower, it might look silly, so I'm not going to do that. I've also masked all the track, and while I was masking, I also put paper around the backdrop as a reminder that I can't attach anything permanently to it. Because as I've mentioned a couple of times, the scenery is part of the lower section and the backdrop is part of the upper section, and they have to come apart to get it in through the client's doorway. So anyway, I think I am now ready to start stacking up foam blocks. So let me just get organized quickly and I'll be right back. Don't go away. Well, that is all the rough lamb forms filled in, all the foam blocks stacked up. In some places I'm still going to be cutting it down, just made sure I give myself plenty of tolerance, plenty of leeway, so that I can work out the landforms as I get to them. That is about half a sheet of 1.5 inch foam and a few offcuts of 1 inch. So I'm going to go in now and let that dry overnight, and I'll check in with you again tomorrow. Don't go away. Well, this is how I left it on Monday afternoon. It's now Wednesday morning. I did come out here yesterday and test it, but the primer had not yet set up to the point where the blocks were secure. They were still ready to slide around. So rather than risk messing it up, I did something else inside yesterday. But this morning it's a different story. Everything is nice and secure, so I'm going to start the carving process. I'll check in with you again periodically, so don't go away. Well, I started in the bottom of the river valley and I worked my way up this side, and I've had to have a change of plan because several of the blocks have broken away with the vibrations from the saw. So obviously this primer is a lot slower drying. The gripper, I could put it on and continue a few hours later, but unfortunately that was discontinued, and this brand, I don't know what's different in the chemical formula, but this has been here 40 hours already, like 2 overnights, and it's still not set. So I'm going to go inside and try again tomorrow. Well, last time I tried carving these landscape blocks, I was having problems with them sliding around and breaking off because the primer hadn't dried properly. It's been cold and wet the last few days, and that certainly hasn't helped, but I think it's dry now. That one is not properly glued on, but I'm going to cut most of that away anyway. It looks like it's stuck well everywhere else. So I'm going to get back to work, spend a little bit of time carving this. I'm not planning on working all day today. It's Saturday and I've got a lot of stuff I need to take care of inside as well. But I think I can at least get the rough forms carved and maybe covered with plaster cloth. So let me get to work and I'll check in with you again later. Don't go away. Well, that is all the rough carving done. I am now reasonably happy with the overall shape. So I'm going to get some plaster cloth on it. I will probably come back and make some minor modifications once I have the plaster cloth on, because at that point it's a lot easier to see what I've got. Well, there is the plaster cloth covering all the rough landforms. It didn't take long, and that is all I'm going to do at the moment. I wasn't planning on spending any time out here at all today, so this is a bonus. I've got loads to take care of inside, so I'll come back out again probably on Monday and continue with some rock carving. Don't go away, I will check in with you then. Well, that seems like a good place to leave it for this installment. Be sure to check in next time and I will continue where I left off. So until then, thanks for watching and bye for now.